I used to believe insomnia was just another phase, something people wrestled with in their 40s, like back pain or the creeping existential dread that life had plateaued. That's what I thought when Emily first started tossing and turning at night, eyes open like she was waiting for something or someone that never arrived. I'd hold her sometimes, wrap my arms around her waist, and press my cheek against her shoulder blade. Her skin was always warm, but her presence had grown cold. "It's nothing," she'd whisper. "Just my brain refusing to shut off." That was 6 months ago. Back then, I still kissed her goodbye every morning and believed I knew the woman I was kissing. Now, I'm not so sure. Her doctor's name was Evan Clark. A sleep specialist, apparently. A new one, young, attractive, with that irritatingly calm tone that made you feel like you were the one overreacting. I remember the first time I met him. He shook my hand for 1 second too long, his gaze lingering on Emily just a beat more than necessary. "He's good," she'd said, brushing off my silent protest. "Knows what he's doing. I've actually been sleeping better." And she had. For a while, at least. But something else shifted too. She stopped laughing at my bad jokes. Her texts became shorter. Kisses became rarer. Her body, though as familiar to me as my own, started to feel rented out. Like I was living in a house someone else had already claimed. And then came the night she didn't come home. It was a Tuesday, storming hard. Sheets of rain lashed the windows like they wanted in. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee going cold, staring at my phone like it was going to blink to life and tell me where she was. 8:49 p.m., still with Dr. Clark. Trying a new method. 10:27 p.m., might stay at mom's tonight. It's too late to drive back. Bullshit. Emily hadn't been to her mother's house in months. And even if she had, she wouldn't have texted like that. It was the tone, curt, calculated, emotionless. I knew her. Or at least I thought I did. The kicker? Her mother texted me at midnight, asking if Emily was okay. "Haven't heard from her in a few days," she said. My hand clenched around my phone, white-knuckled. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I poured myself a scotch, sat on the couch, and listened to the rain. I imagined her, Emily, somewhere else, with someone else. The images that flickered through my mind weren't abstract. They were vivid, cruel. Skin on skin. Fingernails and sheets. Lips pressed where mine no longer belonged. And for a moment, I hated her. But I also missed her. She came back the next morning, just after 7 a.m., hair still damp, wearing a navy trench coat I didn't recognize, the faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine clinging to her like a scarlet letter. She looked at me, expression unreadable, then set her keys on the counter and said, "Sorry I didn't call." I was exhausted. I didn't ask. I didn't want to hear the lie. Instead, I nodded and left for work 15 minutes early. That's when the real insomnia started, mine. Not the kind that keeps you awake. The kind that slowly peels away your sanity, one silent night at a time. They say if you're looking for something, you'll find it. I wasn't looking for evidence of an affair. Not at first. I was just looking for clarity. It started with the silence. Not just Emily's silence, but the silence of routines that had died without a funeral. The goodnight kiss that used to come after brushing her teeth. The shared wine glass we'd pass during movies. Even the stupid inside jokes we used to trade like a secret language. Gone. She became clinical. Measured. Her smiles were the kind you give to cashiers, not husbands. And the more distant she grew, the more I began treating our marriage like a project to fix. And what do you do when a project is failing? You review the variables. The first variable was her phone bill. She left her purse on the kitchen chair one morning when she ran upstairs to grab a scarf. It was innocent enough. But the purse flopped open and her phone bill, printed out in black and white, peeked from the front pocket. We hadn't printed bills in years. Everything was digital now. But there it was, almost like it wanted to be seen. There were multiple outgoing calls after midnight, all to the same number. I didn't recognize it. The area code was local, but that only made it worse. I Googled it. And there it was. Dr. Evan Clark, neurological sleep specialist. He wasn't just a doctor. He was the doctor. The one she said she'd stopped seeing weeks ago. That night, while Emily was in the shower, I did something I had never done in 13 years of marriage. I went through her iPad. She had always kept it unlocked, syncing it lazily with her phone. Most of her texts came through there, including the ones she didn't want me to see. At first, there was nothing but medical jargon. Updates about melatonin dosages, feedback on her REM patterns. But then the tone changed. It always does, doesn't it? "Miss seeing you today. Your voice calms me more than any sedative. Dinner at Rosalind again?" Same booth. I keep thinking about your skin. It's criminal how soft it is. I wish I could say my stomach dropped or that my heart stopped. But what I felt was worse. I felt numb. The world didn't shift under my feet, it hardened. The floor beneath me didn't collapse, it calcified. Everything I thought I knew became stone, dense and cold. I didn't confront her that night. I played dumb. Let her kiss my cheek, one of those air kisses with no weight, and asked her about her day. She lied with such ease, it made me wonder how many times she'd done it before. The next clue came via her credit card. I'd set up alerts long ago, mostly to track household spending. Normally, it was Target, Whole Foods, Amazon. But now, fancy restaurants. One in particular, over and over. Marquette. A sleek, high-end spot near Dr. Clark's private clinic. The place we'd gone for our 10th anniversary. They weren't subtle. The timestamps were always after 9 p.m. Sometimes midnight. Dinner for two. $220. $168. $310. The same night she claimed to be seeing her mother. The same night she'd come home with skin flushed and lips just a little too swollen. I used to think it was from sleep medication. Now I knew better. But the final nail wasn't a bill, or a message, or a lie. It was a photo. Accidental. Auto-uploaded to her cloud, which, again, she had never bothered to secure. They were seated at the booth near the window. He was across from her, leaning in, smiling with the confidence of a man who'd already conquered the woman in front of him. Her hand rested on his. She was glowing. Not the glow of new love. The glow of secret sex. Of danger. Of a thrill you can't explain to someone whose touch no longer makes you gasp. She wore the red blouse I bought her last Christmas. She used to wear it for me. Now, it was just another outfit in a story I didn't belong to. The worst part? She didn't even look guilty. She looked alive. I sat on the couch with her iPad in my lap, that photo staring back at me like a surgeon examining an open wound. That was the moment the grief truly hit. Not because she cheated, but because she hadn't even tried to hide it well. It meant she'd moved on emotionally long before the sex ever started. And now I was the one clinging to something already buried. You don't just knock on another man's door to accuse him of screwing your wife. You think about it. You fantasize about it. Maybe even rehearse the words in front of a mirror like some desperate, cracked version of yourself. But you don't actually do it, unless you're ready for your world to split in two. That Saturday, I stood across the street from Dr. Evan Clark's modern two-story home. His silver Jaguar was in the driveway, polished to a pretentious shine. The front lawn was meticulously kept, the hedges trimmed into symmetry. It was the kind of house where appearances mattered more than substance. Fitting. I didn't come with a plan. Just anger. A raw, tangled fury that had been fermenting in my gut for days. I didn't want to yell. I wanted something quieter, sharper. I crossed the street. When I got closer, I realized someone was already outside, alone, in the back garden. She was barefoot on the flagstone path, her dark hair pulled into a loose knot. Her posture was tense, shoulders hunched like she was bracing for a fight that hadn't started. She held a cigarette between her fingers, its ash long and neglected, the kind that says you're not smoking for the nicotine but the ritual. She didn't turn when I approached. "You here to see Evan?" she said, without looking at me. Her voice was low, almost bored, but it carried a faint tremble, like she already knew who I was and what I'd come to say. I stopped 2 steps from the edge of the garden. I was. But now I'm not so sure. She turned then, her eyes meeting mine. Hazel. Tired. Beautiful in that fierce, intelligent way that makes you realize you're not the one in control of the conversation. "You're Emily's husband." Not a question. She exhaled a plume of smoke and flicked the ash into a ceramic bowl on a wrought iron table beside her. "Thought you might show up eventually. You look better than I expected." Most cheated on husbands come with bloodshot eyes and a broken voice. "I've had time to practice," I said. She nodded slowly. "Want coffee? Or something stronger?" "Coffee's fine. Come on in." I followed her through a side door that opened into a sleek kitchen straight out of a catalog. Marble countertops, minimalist decor, an espresso machine that probably cost more than my first car. It didn't feel lived in, just occupied. She moved like someone used to being watched. Not performing exactly, but aware of her angles. She didn't ask how I took my coffee. She just poured 2 cups, black, and handed one to me. "I'm Isabel," she said. "Dr. Isabel Clark, technically. Radiology." "You're married to him." "Technically," she echoed. "But no, not really." I sipped the coffee. It was good. Strong. Bitter. Fitting. "So, you know about them?" I asked. Isabel looked amused for a split second, then something else passed through her expression. A sharp pain well disguised. She leaned against the counter, one hip cocked just enough to make me feel like I was standing too straight. I've known for months. Maybe longer. I stopped keeping track after I found his second burner phone. Jesus. Yeah. Evan's thorough. A man of routines. Even his betrayals are predictable. I stayed quiet. The coffee cooled in my hands. She looked at me, eyes narrowed. You thought you'd come here and yell? Threaten him? Hit him, maybe. Something like that. Wouldn't be the first. Or the worst. I just wanted the truth. She smiled, dry, humorless. You already had the truth. You wanted permission to feel what you feel. That's different. That hit harder than I expected. You sound like a therapist, I muttered. She laughed once. God, no. But I've had a front row seat to this disaster long enough to know the stages. Shock. Denial. Bargaining. Rage. Then the sad part, acceptance. Everyone gets there eventually. Her eyes flicked toward me, scanning me. Not seductively, more like clinically. Like she was assessing a scan, looking for a fracture. What stage are you in? I asked. Isabel took a sip. Maintenance. Meaning. Meaning I know what he is. I know what I am. And I'm still here, for reasons I don't like saying out loud. Something passed between us then. A thread of mutual understanding, maybe even pity. We were two people who had been rearranged by the same storm, watching from opposite windows as the lightning struck our homes. I wanted to confront him, I said finally. But now that I'm here, it feels useless. It is. He'll lie. Or worse, he'll be honest. And that hurts more. We stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by all the things we weren't saying. Then Isabel set down her cup and smiled, a different kind of smile this time. One with teeth. You know, she said, there's something oddly comforting about knowing exactly who the enemy is. Most people stumble in the dark for years, never knowing who's fucking them over. But not us. We have names. Faces. GPS coordinates. I looked at her. She leaned in slightly, close enough that I could smell the tobacco on her breath and the faint citrus of her skin. Maybe, she whispered, we stop treating this like a tragedy. She let the pause linger before finishing. And start treating it like an opportunity. It should have felt wrong. Sitting across from the wife of the man who'd been inside my wife. Drinking her coffee, breathing her air. Trading confessions like war medals. But it didn't feel wrong. It felt necessary. We moved from the kitchen to the back patio. The sky had started to darken, that heavy blue hue that signals the last stretch of daylight. Isabel lit another cigarette and curled her legs underneath her on the cushion lounger. I sat opposite her, gripping my cup tighter than necessary. You ever think about what you'd do if the roles were reversed? She asked, blowing smoke out the side of her mouth. If you were the one who cheated first? No, I said. Too fast. Too honest. I don't think I'm wired that way. She gave me a look, half skeptical, half intrigued. People are always more elastic than they think. Pressure changes things. I'm not justifying what Emily did, I added. Neither am I, she replied. I'm just saying, infidelity isn't always about sex. I looked at her. What is it about, then? She shrugged, but the gesture was anything but casual. Control. Escape. Feeling something other than numb. Maybe just wanting to be seen again. I let that sit for a moment. She said she was finally sleeping again, I muttered. But I think what she really meant was, she finally felt awake. Isabel chuckled. That's poetic. And completely fucked. Yeah. We both stared out at the garden for a while. The sprinkler clicked on somewhere in the distance. Crickets started humming. Isabel tapped her ash and then turned her gaze toward me, eyes sharp again. Do you still want her? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I don't know, I admitted. Some part of me misses her so much it hurts. Another part wants her to feel what I feel. To burn. Isabel leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees. You want her to know she lost something irreplaceable. I nodded. She won't, Isabel said, voice flat. Not until you become someone who makes her doubt everything she chose. That struck me. Not just the truth of it, but the way she said it. Like a diagnosis handed down by a seasoned doctor. Clinical. Detached. But underneath, a pulse of something hot. I swallowed hard. You sound like you've done this before. Not quite, she said. But I've imagined it. More than I wanted to admit. We fell into silence again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It buzzed. It hummed. Like the low-frequency charge before a storm breaks. You're not like I expected, she said suddenly. How's that? I figured you'd be the quiet type. Passive. You know, the kind who just takes the betrayal, internalizes it, gets therapy, and moves on. I looked at her, letting the words hit. Maybe I was. Before all this. She smiled. Good. Passive men bore me. There was something about the way she said it, blunt, unapologetic, that made my chest tighten. I couldn't stop watching the way her fingers moved, how her lips curled around each exhale. We were two people orbiting the same black hole, spinning closer. I have an idea, she said, eyes flicking up. I'm listening. We treat the disease with something a little toxic. I raised an eyebrow. You're going to have to be more specific. Isabel uncrossed her legs and stood, walking toward me. Slow, controlled, the way a surgeon might approach a scalpel. Or a lover. She leaned down, her face inches from mine. Her scent was intoxicating, vanilla, tobacco, and something warm and female underneath. Let's stop being the victims, she whispered. Let's turn the tables. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, she said. Yet, she straightened, her expression unreadable. But if I were, I'd suggest we stop mourning the dead and start building something from the ashes. My pulse was doing strange things. Every part of me screamed caution. But another part, deep and primal, was already stepping into the fire. Isabel, I said, voice lower than I expected. What exactly are you offering here? Her lips curved. Support. Clarity. A chance to make them both wonder what they've unleashed. She leaned closer again, this time resting her hand on my shoulder, just lightly. Tell me you haven't thought about it, she said. Her seeing you with someone else. Someone she'd never expect. I didn't answer. Didn't have to. Isabel smiled, slow and satisfied. She patted my shoulder once, like she'd just made the first incision and was pleased with the cut. We'll talk more, she said. But not tonight. Why not? Because, she said, turning toward the house, I want you to dream about it first. Let it marinate. She paused at the threshold, backlit by warm light. Come by next week. Friday. We'll start outlining our treatment plan. Then she disappeared inside, the door clicking shut behind her. I sat there for a long time, the air thick with heat and adrenaline. I wasn't sure if I wanted revenge or something far more dangerous. All I knew was this: the symptoms of my pain had a new name now. And her name was Isabel. I didn't sleep much that week. Not because of Emily, not anymore. She was a ghost now, something that lingered only when I let my mind go quiet. No, the thing that kept me up was the echo of Isabel's voice. We treat the disease with something a little toxic. That line looped in my head like a prescription written in blood. By Friday, my hands were trembling, not with fear, but anticipation. I didn't know what exactly we were going to do, but I knew what I wanted to happen. I wanted to feel something again. Anything. Anger. Lust. Even guilt. Hell, maybe especially guilt. Because guilt at least meant I was still a man who gave a damn about the lines he crossed. But when I knocked on Isabel's door and she opened it in that deep gray silk robe, bare legs, no makeup, a glass of red wine in one hand, I stopped giving a damn entirely. She didn't smile. Just stepped aside and said, "You're late." I came early. Sat in the car for 20 minutes. She raised an eyebrow. Nervous? Terrified? Good. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, robe swaying with each step. No bra. No attempt to hide it. The curve of her hips pulled at my attention like gravity. I followed her, not trusting my voice. 2 wine glasses sat waiting on the counter. She handed me one. To old lives, she said. And to burning them down, I added. We drank. And then, silence. Not awkward. Electric. She took a slow step toward me. Then another. Her fingers brushed the side of my arm, trailing upward until they curled around the back of my neck. When was the last time she made you feel wanted? She asked. I swallowed. I don't remember. She leaned in, her breath against my jaw now, her voice lower than a whisper. I do. I didn't ask what she meant. Didn't need to. Her lips touched mine like a test, soft, curious. I kissed her back with everything I'd held in since that first goddamn night Emily didn't come home. And that was it. No more pretense. No more half measures. She pulled me against her, robe parting, skin hot beneath my palms. I barely made it to the bedroom before her hands were inside my shirt, her nails raking across my chest. The sex wasn't slow. It wasn't tender. It was rage and grief and revenge stitched together in sweat and skin. She took control, pinning me down, biting my lip, whispering filth into my ear like a surgeon dissecting every weak spot in my restraint. You taste better than he ever did, she growled. Her voice was laced with venom and satisfaction. I didn't stop her. When she rode me, it wasn't about pleasure, it was about power. And God help me, I let her take it. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't the one being left behind. I was the one being wanted. When it was over, we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like her and sweat and something almost like redemption. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, Isabel turned to me, brushing hair from her face. "I'm not your rebound," she said. "I know. This wasn't a mistake. I know that too." Her eyes held mine. Fierce. Unapologetic. "Then understand this. If we do this, it's not going to be some secret side thing. This is a treatment plan. And I don't play passive." I reached for her hand and squeezed it. "I'm not looking for passive." She leaned in and kissed me again, softer now, but with the same fire underneath. "Then you better be ready for your next dose," she said. I smirked. "What's the dosage schedule?" "Depends," she whispered, straddling me again. "How badly do you want them to suffer?" The next morning, I woke up in Isabel's bed, half covered in a linen sheet that smelled like her shampoo and sweat and something slightly floral I couldn't name. The sunlight poured in through the sheer curtains, painting stripes across her bare back. She was already awake, typing something on her laptop, wearing nothing but a tank top and a pair of black lace underwear that might as well have been air. She didn't look over when she spoke. "You snore a little," she said, her tone clinical, like she was adding it to a chart. "First time I've slept in weeks," I murmured. "You're welcome." I rolled onto my side. "So, that was therapy?" She smirked, eyes still on the screen. "That was phase 1. Physical relief. Emotional unloading. A bit of ego resuscitation. Comes with a copay?" She finally looked at me, deadpan. "You paid in full. With interest." I sat up, running a hand through my hair. "So what's phase 2? She closed the laptop. Her face shifted, still calm, still composed, but now there was something under the surface. A blade behind the eyes. "We exposed them," she said. "Not just to each other. To the world. I want Evan to feel what it's like to watch something you built dissolve in real time." "You're talking about public humiliation." She nodded. "I'm talking about precision." She got up, walked across the room to a dresser, and pulled out a manila envelope. Dropped it on the bed in front of me. Inside were photos. Screenshots. Emails. I flipped through them slowly, jaw tightening with each one. Evan and Emily outside a hotel. Emily's hand on his chest. A string of messages. "Miss you already. You tasted amazing. Same sweet next Friday? I thought you said you stopped keeping track," I muttered. "I said I stopped caring. Doesn't mean I stopped documenting. Evan doesn't believe in passwords." Her foresight. "You hacked him." She lit a cigarette by the open window. "I married him." "Fair enough." We spent the rest of the morning drawing battle lines. She had the evidence. I had the rage. Together, we started to plan what Isabel referred to as the prescription plan, a long-term course of treatment with lasting side effects. "We start with observation," she said, pouring more coffee. "Track patterns. See when they mate. Where? How often? You handle Emily's side. I'll keep tabs on Evan. We going full private investigator on this? We're doing better than that. We're going personal. That's our advantage. We know them." And she was right. I knew Emily's patterns better than I knew my own heartbeat. Fridays were her spa days, which now meant 2 hours at a boutique hotel off 6th. Tuesdays were her book club, which apparently involved little reading and more cardio. The same hotel, different time slot. I started photographing her car outside the lot, snapping shots of receipts she left in her purse, taking screenshots of her calendar when she wasn't looking. At night, I'd send everything to Isabel. She'd reply with timestamped photos of Evan's appointments, curiously matching Emily's. Emails from his secretary about client offsites. One afternoon, she even caught him leaving the clinic in a rush, tie undone, hair messy. "We're building a case," she said one night over bourbon. "And I'm prescribing something bolder." "Bolder than what we're doing?" She nodded slowly, eyes gleaming in the dim light. "We let them discover us." That stopped me. "You want to get caught?" "I want them to see. I want Emily to walk into a room and feel the air get sucked out of her lungs. I want Evan to choke on his own entitlement. And you think us being together, publicly, is the best way?" "Think about it," she said, swirling the glass in her hand. "They're the ones who broke the rules. But the moment they feel us slip out of their grip, they'll panic. Because suddenly we're not background characters anymore." I swallowed hard. "What do you have in mind?" "There's a hospital gala next week," she said. "Fundraiser. Black tie. Evan always goes. And guess who else just RSVP'd this year for the first time?" I stared at her. "My Emily." She smiled. "Exactly. And this year, she'll be seeing you. In a tux. With me on your arm." I let the idea sink in. My stomach flipped, not with doubt, but a thrill I hadn't felt in years. The thought of walking into that ballroom, holding Isabel close, watching Emily's smug detachment crack like glass under pressure. Yeah, I'm in. Good, Isabel said, finishing her drink. Then let's start preparing. As I reached for my phone to delete every trace of our plan, she stopped me. Wait, she said. I looked up. Her eyes darkened just slightly. One more thing. Before we weaponize this, I want you to be clear about something. Okay, this isn't just about revenge, she said, moving closer. This is about reclaiming yourself, your dignity, your strength, and maybe your appetite. She leaned in, no pretense this time. Her hand slid down my chest, under my belt. You've been starving, she whispered. Let's make sure they know what it's like when you're fed. The tux fit better than I expected. Tailored a little too well, according to Isabel. You're going to break her heart, she said that night, eyeing me from the mirror with a smirk. And his ego. I wasn't used to wearing anything this sleek. But then again, I wasn't used to feeling dangerous. The charity gala was held at the Metropolitan Ballroom, one of those glass-paneled buildings where wealth echoed in every marble tile and whispered across every flute of Dom Perignon. Doctors, donors, pharmaceutical execs, everyone in black tie, dressed to impress, unaware that the real drama wasn't in their research or their grants. It was between four people. Me, Isabel, Emily, Evan. We arrived late, intentionally, just past the first course, just before the speeches. All eyes turned when we walked in. Isabel in a backless black satin gown, hair pinned high, one leg visible through a deep slit that screamed, I am not your wife anymore, and you will regret everything. I let her take my arm, held her close. We looked like a couple that had history, something magnetic, inevitable. And we did. We had trauma, rage, and the chemistry of two people who knew they were playing with fire and leaning in any way. I didn't see Emily at first, but she saw me. I felt it before I turned, like a sharp tug in my chest. Her eyes locked on mine from across the room. She was standing near the bar, a flute of champagne in hand, dressed in something gold and glittering. Her lips parted, just slightly, as if she couldn't quite compute what she was seeing. Me, with her lover's wife. Isabel leaned in close to my ear. She sees us. I smiled. She looks confused. She looks threatened, Isabel corrected. Now kiss me. I blinked. Right now? Yes. And make it good. I didn't hesitate. I turned and kissed her, slow, deep, confident. My hand at her lower back, her fingers in my lapel. It wasn't just for show. It was a kiss meant to be felt. Watched. Measured. When we pulled apart, she whispered. Now let's go say hello. I followed her across the ballroom, my heart pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my fingertips. We passed couples sipping wine, surgeons exchanging pleasantries, nurses trying to look like they didn't see the fireworks trailing behind us. Emily turned as we approached, trying to collect herself. But her cheeks were already flushed, her fingers wide around the stem of her glass. Hi, I said calmly. Emily. What are you doing here? She asked, voice tight. I'm Isabel's date, I replied, as if I hadn't just detonated her entire perception of control. You look lovely tonight. Isabel stepped in, smiling at Evan, who had just returned to the bar with a whiskey in hand. Darling, she purred. So nice to see you outside your usual rendezvous spot. Evan's face drained like someone had pulled the power plug. Isabel, he stammered. I didn't expect. That much is clear, she interrupted. You never do expect consequences, do you? Emily looked between us, searching for the lie. This is a joke, she said. You too, you're not really. Isabel cut her off. Fucking? Oh, we are. Regularly. Loudly. Sometimes even in your old hotel. Emily stepped back as if slapped. Evan's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he wanted to evaporate. You don't have to believe us, I said, voice even. But I would recommend checking your texts. And maybe your voicemail. Emily's hand trembled. Why would you? Because, sweetheart, Isabel said, full of venomous charm. You've been so careless. So painfully predictable. I figured we'd return the favor, with just a bit more style. The gala's host stepped on stage, tapping the mic. The room quieted. Lights shifted, but not before I caught it. Just for a second. The exact moment Emily realized she wasn't in control anymore. It was in the way she blinked, like her world had suddenly tilted. Like her puppet strings had been cut. And Isabel? She stood there smiling like the goddess of retribution in heels. We didn't stick around for the speeches. Isabel and I slipped out during applause, laughter bubbling in her throat like champagne fizz. We stepped into the night air, her hand still in mine. That, she said, was better than I imagined. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. She saw something worse, Isabel corrected. Someone she thought she destroyed, rising. We got into the car, and before I could even start the engine, she pulled me in. This time, the kiss wasn't for them. It was ours. It was the reward. It was the ignition for what came next. Revenge has a half-life. That night at the gala, it was nuclear. The kiss, the confrontation, the way Emily looked at me like she couldn't breathe, like I had slipped from her fingers and into the hands of someone far more dangerous. That moment rewired something in me. But the fallout? That came the next morning. Emily was waiting in the kitchen when I came home. She had let herself in with the spare key I always meant to hide. She was still in the gold dress, her mascara smudged, her arms wrapped around her like she was trying to hold herself together. "You're sleeping with her," she said, no preamble. I closed the door behind me, set my keys on the table. "Yes." "Jesus, why?" "Why?" I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You really want to talk about why now?" She stood slowly, fire flickering behind her eyes. "You could have talked to me. We could have worked through." "Worked through what? Your lies? Your hotel room hookups? The nights you didn't come home? Telling me you were getting treatment while you were getting fucked?" She flinched. "Good. It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered. "No, Emily. It was supposed to be you in control. You sleeping with him, me staying clueless, loyal, maybe pathetic enough to forgive it when I found out." Her mouth opened, but nothing came. I stepped closer. "But instead, you saw me walk into that ballroom with the one woman who knows exactly what you are. And it shook you. You're trying to hurt me." "I already did." She looked away, then back at me, eyes rimmed in red. "So this is revenge?" "No," I said coldly. "This is balance." Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake. That's not what your text said. Or the photos. Or the 2-hour windows on Tuesday nights." "I was lonely," she snapped, suddenly defensive. "I didn't feel seen. You buried yourself in routine, in silence." I felt like I was fading. I stared at her for a long moment. "You didn't fade. You just got bored. So you chased something exciting, and now you're pissed because I did the same." She stepped forward, tears now sliding freely. "We can fix this. Please. I never stopped loving you." I felt my jaw tighten. "No," I said. "You just stopped respecting me. And once that's gone, love's just a pretty echo." She sat down slowly, burying her face in her hands. I left the room. That afternoon, Isabel called. "I just got off the phone with Evan," she said, sounding satisfied. "Let me guess, he's furious. He's humiliated. He tried to spin it. Said I was overreacting. That what we did was worse." I snorted. "Of course he did." So I emailed him the spreadsheet. "What spreadsheet?" "Oh, you didn't know?" she said, teasing. "I kept a log. Dates. Locations. Duration. Hell, I even included the names of his patients when he was canceling appointments for their emergencies." "You are terrifying." "Thank you." We both paused. Then she added, "It's all unraveling now. Hospital boards opening a review. Ethics panels involved. What about you?" "I'm clean. Always made sure of that." "But Evan? He's sweating. And your Emily? She looked ready to shatter last night." "She did." "Good." A beat passed, her voice softening. "How are you feeling?" "Like I finally took my hands off the wheel and let the crash happen." "Do you regret it?" "No. But I didn't expect it to feel this final." She paused. "Come over." I hesitated. "I don't think this is about sex anymore." She laughed, low and intimate. "It never was. It was about reclaiming the parts of ourselves they tried to erase." When I arrived at her place, Isabel was barefoot in jeans and a loose tee, sipping wine on her porch like it was just another Tuesday. She looked at me for a long moment. "I was worried," she admitted, "that once you got your revenge, you'd walk away." "I thought I might. And now I'm realizing I don't want to go back to who I was before any of this." She stood, walked over to me, and cupped my face in her hands. "That man was kind," she said, "but he was asleep. And now," she smiled, "now, you're awake." Just like she said she wanted to be. I kissed her then, not for revenge, not for closure, but for the strange, undeniable truth that we had built something real on the ashes of everything else. We didn't just survive the fallout. We were the side effects. And we were still unfolding. I hadn't been inside our old bedroom in weeks. The room where I used to sleep beside Emily, where her perfume clung to the pillows, where she used to lean her head against my shoulder in the dark and whisper about baby names, or weekend plans, or nothing at all. I stood in the doorway now, feeling like a guest in my own past. Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed. No makeup, no jewelry, just an old sweatshirt that used to be mine and a look on her face like she was halfway between a confession and a breakdown. I didn't know how bad it was until it was too late, she said, barely looking at me. I did, I replied. I just lied to myself better. There was a long silence. One of those cold, brittle pauses that used to end with one of us giving in and trying to hold the other. But now it just stretched between us like a burned bridge. I never loved him, she whispered. I know. I wanted to feel something. Anything. I felt like I was disappearing. You were. But so was I. She looked up then finally. Eyes rimmed in red, cheeks raw from wiping tears that had already dried. Isabel? She asked. What about her? Is it real? I took a breath. It's honest. And I think that's better than anything we had left. She didn't respond. Just nodded slowly, like the answer hurt and helped at the same time. You kissed her like you used to kiss me, she said. At the gala. I didn't apologize. She pulled something from the nightstand. A small box. Set it beside her on the bed and pushed it toward me. What is this? I found it cleaning out the attic. Letters. Photos. The first anniversary gift you gave me, the one with the compass etched with, "Home is where you are." She smiled faintly. I just thought, maybe you'd want to decide what to do with it. I stared at the box. It felt like an artifact from another life. I loved you, I said. I know. And I tried. I know that too. There was a finality in her voice. Not cold, not bitter, just tired. The tone of someone who'd finally let go of a rope after years of bleeding fingers. I'll be staying with a friend for a while, she said. You don't have to rush the paperwork. I won't contest anything. I wasn't going to make this messy. You already did. We both did. But now I want clean. I need it. I nodded and turned to leave. I made it halfway down the stairs when I heard her voice again. Do you hate me? I paused. Let the question settle into the drywall and hardwood. No, I said over my shoulder. But I think I needed to. Outside, the air was sharp and clean. I dropped the box into the passenger seat, started the car, and drove with no destination in mind until I found myself in front of Isabel's place. She opened the door in jeans and bare feet, holding a glass of wine like she'd been expecting me. Rough visit? She asked. Final visit. I stepped inside. You okay? I don't know what I am, but I know what I'm not anymore. I'm not waiting for her to change. I'm not pretending I'm not angry. I'm not scared of what happens next. Isabel tilted her head. And what has happened next? I smiled. You tell me. You're the doctor. She poured me a drink, handed it to me, then pulled out her phone. I have an invitation, she said. Greece. 2 weeks. Medical retreat/vacation. I was going to go alone. I looked at her. You asking me to come as your plus one? I'm prescribing it, she said, grinning. Rehab. Sunday. A villa with 2 mini windows. And what's the treatment plan? She leaned in close. We drink, we swim, we stop looking backward. And we see what happens when pain isn't the only thing tying us together. I looked at her for a long moment. And then, for the first time in what felt like years, I nodded without hesitation. Book the flight. The sky over Mykonos looked like something painted by gods who were showing off. The kind of blue that hurts your eyes if you stare too long. The sea below shimmered in layers, turquoise, sapphire, indigo, like it couldn't make up its mind. The whitewashed buildings with their cobalt shutters seemed to glow in the late afternoon sun, and the breeze that rolled over the villa's terrace carried the scent of salt, wine, and something like jasmine. I was sitting in a linen chair, barefoot, shirt unbuttoned, a sweating glass of ouzo in my hand. And I wasn't thinking about Emily. Not her betrayal. Not her apology. Not even the last words she'd said to me. That part of my life had finally grown quiet. Inside, Isabel moved like the breeze, fluid, barefoot, wearing nothing but a silk robe the color of deep wine, loose at the collar, her legs bare. Her hair was a mess, in the most deliberate, perfect way. She carried 2 drinks and an expression I couldn't quite decode, part amusement, part hunger, part satisfaction. You look like a man who survived a war, she said, handing me one of the glasses. I feel like a man who finally walked off the battlefield. Scars. Some, I admitted, sipping. But they don't itch anymore. She slid into the seat beside me, her robe falling open just enough to distract me mid-sentence. Her thigh brushed mine. "Do you miss her?" she asked, not looking at me. I took a beat. "No." You hesitated. I reflected. She smiled. "Good answer." We sat in silence, the kind that didn't beg to be filled. Below us, the village was slowly lighting up, one terrace and lamp at a time. There was laughter drifting up from the narrow alleys. Clinking glasses. Distant music. But up here, it was just us. "When this started," I said, "I didn't think I'd ever feel normal again. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life measuring people by how much they reminded me of the ones who broke me. And now," I turned toward her, "now I know there's something better than getting even. Which is getting free." She leaned her head on my shoulder, the silk of her robe brushing my skin like water. "You've changed," she said softly. "You helped." She reached for my hand and laced our fingers together. "I wasn't always this put together, you know," she said. "Evan used to tell me I was too cold, too clinical, that I couldn't just feel things. Like my logic made me less of a woman." I looked at her. "You're the warmest person I've ever burned with." She laughed, low and genuine. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You should." We sat like that for a while. No past, no plan. Just the present. Eventually, she turned toward me, straddled my lap with an ease that was no longer about seduction. It was about comfort, ownership, connection. "You ready for your next treatment?" she whispered, hands on my chest. I smiled, pulled her close. "No discharge yet, doctor. I'm still in recovery." "Lucky for you," she said, tilting her hips just enough to make me forget the sky, the sea, the world. I don't believe in quick recoveries. We kissed like we had all the time in the world. And maybe, for the first time, we did.